Welcome to the Programming Lions podcast. Who doesn't want to be a better communicator? Today, we have Brenden Kumarasamy on the show. He is a communication coach, expert, and YouTuber. He also founded the company Master Talk, where he coaches entrepreneurs and executives to be top 1% communicators in their respective fields. So, on today's show, we're going to talk about communication, the importance of it, how to communicate succinctly and clearly. So, buckle up, let's get into it. Brenden, welcome to the Programming Lions podcast. We are pumped to have you on and learn from you today. Could you give us a little bit of background on your expertise, your story, and purpose?
Absolutely, Max, Will, Matt, great to be on the show. Thanks for having me. Happy to talk about that. So the journey for me started in college. When I was at university, I went to business school. And funny enough, I studied in accounting, which is like the opposite of what you would expect a communication expert does. So instead of talking about speaking, I was learning how to crunch numbers for a living and do pluses and subtractions and multiplications and divisions. But then when I was in college, I started doing these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other guys my age were like playing soccer or football or baseball or some other sport you probably wouldn't see me playing. I did presentations competitively as a sport. And that's how I learned how to speak. And then when I got older, long story short, I was probably like 20 or 21 at the time. I started coaching the other students in college on how to speak to help them better win competitions. And I accidentally got really good at communication coaching, and I started the YouTube channel when I was 22, and the rest is history.
Wow. And so how many years have you been at it now?
Technically, I've been coaching for 9 years now, but I started the YouTube channel in 2019. So Master Talk, it's been 5 years now, 5 years and a half.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, we are looking forward to unpacking some communication skills and getting some tips and advice because we are in the business of communicating, actually, with a podcast. It's very fitting for us. I'll turn it over to the boys. We got a few questions we want to pick your brain about.
So you just said that you got into coaching at the end of college, basically. How or why did you want to do coaching on it?
Yeah, fantastic question, Will. So at the beginning, coaching was never a profession for me. So when I was in school, I did really well in these competitions, right? So I started speaking well. I didn't really know how to do it myself. I went on the internet, I looked at TED Talks and presentations, and I kind of learned it. But then as I got older, I started running that program to help other people kind of do these competitions. Kind of like when you're on a baseball team, and then as you get older, you kind of mentor the younger kids to help them with their baseball. So it's kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then how that turned into coaching was I wasn't really like trying to get paid or anything. I was just helping them. And I didn't know what I was doing. Like I didn't know how to coach other people. I was making a ton of mistakes. But I had so much fun doing it. And then what happened was when I started making YouTube videos, this is probably like in 2019. In 8 months, I already signed a client. Like somebody wanted to pay me to coach them. And I was like, you want to pay me money to do this? And they're like, yeah. And then everything just blew up from there. So yeah, super grateful.
Wow, that's cool.
Amazing. Yeah.
All right. So which speaker or communicator you look up to?
Absolutely, Max. That's a great question. Which communicator do I look up to? This is hard, right? Because everyone's got their own style. It's kind of like if you ask, like, what's your guys' favorite sport? Will and Max, what's your guys' favorite sport?
Football, swimming.
Football, like American football, right? Like NFL,
Yeah.
right? So let's say we take the NFL. If I asked you guys who was your favorite football player, you probably both have different names. Right? Like one of you probably might say Patrick Mahomes, the other person might say Tom Brady or something. So it's the same thing in speaking where everyone's got their own opinion. I'll give you my personal one. I think Tony Robbins is the best speaker in the world right now because his stamina, he's able to speak for like 15 hours straight. He's a wild animal. Like a few years ago, I went to go hear him communicate like in person. I was just like, wow, this guy he doesn't take any bathroom breaks. He just speaks. He just goes. And there's like 13,000 people in the room just cheering his name and rocking him on. It's quite the experience. Yeah, I think Tony's the best in the world. Yeah.
Does he wear a Depends? How does he do that?
Nobody knows. He's never told anyone.
Does he pee his pants? He's a wizard.
I've seen him. I don't know if the boys are as familiar, but I've definitely seen Tony Robbins, and it's pretty inspirational.
Next question is kind of about my parents. Because, sometimes we get in arguments, sometimes we want something. What are some ways that I can pursue my parents?
Persuade your parents. Well, that is a fantastic question. The fact that you're thinking about that question means you're ahead of the game, which I think is great. I'll tell you a
Nice.
personal story in my life. So me and my mom used to argue all the time when I was your age, all the time. And the reason we used to argue all the time is because we came from completely different cultures. So my mom was a refugee from Sri Lanka, which is a small country south of India, and she grew
Mm.
up like in war zones and really difficult situations. Whereas I was born in Canada, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
States. So when you're born in the States, you have a different way of thinking, you have a different way of being. So like my mom would do a bunch of weird things I didn't really understand when I was younger. I'll give you the funniest example. So like my neighbors that I used to spend a lot of time with, she would never let me eat at their house. Never. It's like, so I'd be like, Mom, like why can't I eat macaroni at my friend's house? They're like, no, we can't, you can't have food at other people's house that are not from our background. And I was always frustrated with her. And then one day when I was 15, Will, and I encourage you to do this right now when you're 12, I asked myself this question. I wasn't as good as articulating it like I am now, but I asked myself this question. So I'm mad with my mom. We're always talking all the time. Do I want that to be the relationship with my mom for the rest of my life? Like
No.
when she's gone, which is going to be, no, right? There's one day, it's going to be in a long time, right? Maybe it's in 40 years or 50 years for you guys, but there's going to be one day where your mom and your dad won't be there. And the reason I say that is because when I started thinking that way, my first reaction was, I want me and my mom to be pals, right? I want us to be friends. So one day I went up to her when I was 15 and I asked her a question that no 15-year-old boy asks their mother, which is, I became the mature one. I just said, hey, Mom, I know it bothers you that I go eat in other people's homes. Why does it bother you? I just asked why. And I just listened to my mom for 30 minutes. And it made perfect sense because when you grow up in a war zone, you grow up in Sri Lanka, you grow up in difficult situations, you're taught to lock your doors and not to go outside, right? But then after she said that, I explained my perspective, and guess what? I got to eat at my friend's house, and I haven't argued with my mother in over a decade. We've never argued over anything big in the
Wow.
last 10 years. And that's my encouragement. Be the mature one. Be more mature than your dad. That's the advice
That,
that I have for you, Will.
Be
And
more
ask
mature
why,
than your
and he'll give you
brother.
whatever you want.
that shouldn't be that hard, Will,
Why?
given my maturity level.
I like how you
Oh.
asked why. I love it. You took the advice
Yeah.
right away.
That's amazing.
Dad, why can't we have ice cream?
Oh gosh,
Right now.
we'll come back to that
Right
later.
now.
We'll
now.
we'll come back to that later.
All right.
Brendan, I have a question related to our podcast. So we started this journey late last year, me and the boys. We got about 40 episodes published, and we're having a good time. We're getting some really cool guests on, like yourself. And we want to be better at what we do. And one of the things that we talk about in our little programming Lions strategy sessions is getting just a little bit better every day, every episode, everything we do. And over time, that'll stack up and make us much better at our disciplines. But in terms of podcasting and being in a public view, what's some advice you could give us for what we're doing that we could apply maybe right away?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic question, Matt. The way I think about it is communication is like juggling 18 balls at the same time, right? So one of those balls is body language, one of them is smiling, one of them is vocal tone variety, one of them is humor, telling stories. And it can get really confusing really fast to get better at speaking, especially when you're 12 or when you're 11, right?
Mhm.
So the main idea is to say, what is the easiest thing that we can work on right now? So, for example, in the context of football, which is your guys' favorite sport, the easy thing to start with is like, hey, let's play catch with the football and see if we can catch the ball and throw it, right? So it's simple. We're not really looking at technique. We're not trying to master it. We're just asking ourselves the question of, am I playing catch with my dad or with my brother or with my family every week? That's the only question that we measure ourselves against. How many times are we throwing the football every week? Good so far? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So now, how do we apply that to speaking?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we can apply the same logic to speaking and the same idea, you guys will get better much faster at speaking. The questions will come out cleaner. You'll be a lot more articulate. But more importantly, you want to do it in a way that's fun. Because what's happening right now is at school, I'm assuming you guys are in grade 5 or grade 6 or in grade 4 or grade 7, in between these grade levels. The presentations you're giving at school are boring, right?
Oh,
It's like
yeah,
you got to
they are.
talk about stuff you don't like, right? I see Will's resonating with that. Does that resonate
Yeah.
with you, Will? Right?
Yeah, I do not like grammar.
There you go.
Grammar
Right?
sucks.
And that's really the key is like your teachers are and it's not their fault, by the way, don't hold it against them. It's the education system that's telling them what to do. So they're giving you a presentation that you don't like, so you don't like speaking growing up, right? That's what I'm trying to fix in the world. But really the main idea is about saying, how do we make this fun? So I'll give you guys an exercise that you guys can do together to work on your speaking. And
Love
it's
it.
called, and I used to do this with kids all the time. My youngest, I think, was 5 years old. So you guys could easily do this. So it's called the random word exercise. You take a word like phone or
Yeah.
screen, any word, doesn't matter, headphone, podcast, t-shirt, and you give a random presentation out of thin air. So you take a word like tissue box and you give a presentation. If you do that 2-3 times a day with your dad, with your friends, in a month you'll be really, really good at the exercise.
Oh, that's interesting. That would create some improvisation around a topic and get you conditioned to being able to deal with that, right? That's a really interesting exercise. I might
Yeah.
have to try
Poop.
that.
A brown substance that comes out of your butt.
Oh.
I
You
probably
wanna-
wouldn't
you-
do the random word there, but maybe you could start with like grapes or something.
Yes, grapes might be a little bit more tasteful than poo.
Poop.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
Alright.
certainly
mature,
you
very
could
mature.
elaborate on poo. A lot of people can. Will maybe that'll be something we try out tomorrow.
I feel like since we have trolls on our channel, do you? And I just want to know, how do you handle the trolls? Or if you're in a debate, how do you handle that?
Yeah, fantastic, Max. I get trolls all the time. I'll tell you guys why. If you notice, my arm is crooked
Oh.
because I have a physical disability in my left arm because of an accident that happened when I was born. I'm okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with me or anything. My left arm works just fine. And I do pretty well for myself. So you don't have to worry about my disability because of that. The reason I tell you guys this is because I get hate comments on the daily because I have 100,000 followers on Instagram. So there's a bunch of people every day who are talking about my arm. Sometimes my neck is a little right. Sometimes when I'm filming videos. And I get mocked all the time. All the time. Why doesn't it bother me? I think is really the question.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a wise woman once told me, her name is Brene Brown. She says in a video, you should never take advice from somebody who's not in the arena fighting with you. So there's two kinds of people in the world, Max. Two kinds of people. Okay. There's the people, and actually, let's actually use a better analogy because both of you like football, right? So there's two types of people in that football stadium. The first type of person is in the arena. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Travis Kelce. It's people like them who are putting their bodies on the line, playing the game, right? And then the second type of person is the person sitting on the stands. And there's nothing wrong with sitting on the stands, right? Because all of us are sitting on the stands in a football stadium. We're cheering them on. But the people who are complaining and sitting on the stands, we do not want to take advice from those people. Right. And the reason their opinion doesn't matter is because they're not playing the game. Like, why would Patrick Mahomes take my feedback on how he could be a better football player? I'm not playing football. I'm on the stands. So the only thing I can do for Patrick is cheer him on, give him some positive energy. But I'm not going to give him feedback on how to be better. And that is the key to the life. Not just in social media, Max. I think that's true in general. You should always be taking advice seriously to heart from the people who know you. Like, if I give you feedback, don't take it seriously. I don't know you, right? That well. Obviously, we're getting to know each other right now. But if your dad or your brother or people around you really care about you, give you advice, take that to heart. But the people who are not creating content, and that's why I admire the two of you, especially Max and Wells. You guys are putting yourselves out there really early in life. And I think that takes a lot of bravery. I think that takes a lot of courage. And anyone who tells you otherwise, I think, should close it and not be playing on the game because they're just sitting on the stands. So I hope that's helpful.
Wow. It is.
That's
That's deep,
There you go.
I like
but
that.
really cool.
Yeah,
It's deep. It's ocean deep.
it is. It is. But that does help put in perspective We look at our comments together, and we actually get a good laugh out of most of them.
Typically, it's the ones that are kind of inappropriate that get our laughs out.
All right.
That's
so
amazing.
I have a question. So Joe Biden, our president, what's up with his communication, and how can he improve it?
Max, I think you've asked me the hardest, and I've been on a lot of podcasts this year with different types of people a little bit older than us today. And they've asked me some tough questions, but I don't think no question is harder than the one you just asked me. Can we save Joe Biden? Look, I don't want to make this
save Joe Biden.
I don't want to make this political or anything because I do have a view on who I would vote for, but I'm not an American citizen, so it doesn't matter. But hey, I think Joe Biden's problems span beyond the scope of communication skills. I think there's just something on the psychological side, and I'll leave it at that. I will leave it at that. But I think what I will say is not everybody could be an exceptional communicator. I think most people can. I think you two can. I think Matt can. I think the vast majority of people can. But there's some exceptions. If you start to have dementia, I've been seeing a couple of clips in the last 30 days where he's like freezing. Brenden can't save him, guys. But hey, God bless America, and that's all I got for you guys.
Sat down on the stage like he was taking a dump. Did
Yeah.
you see that?
He did. He did.
Yeah.
I can describe
Okay.
America in one word.
You two
Well,
are a blast. You
all
two
right,
must
well-
be amazing
Oh,
with the
my.
ladies, by the way. I'm sure girls love you guys. Anyways, next question.
Speaking of that, I actually have a
That's a
I
good
actually had
segue.
a question about that. So I was wondering, I'm not planning on doing this right now. Okay, I think I'm too young for it. But when the day comes, what is the best way to ask a girl out?
What is the best? I'm struggling with that right now, by the way, if I'm being honest. I'm trying to ask a girl out this week, and I am scared to death of it. So it's something that we're all learning.
So
We're
even
all
you get
growing.
stage fright.
Totally. When it comes to girls, for sure. Not
Well,
as
everyone's
clients.
mostly.
You know, funny enough, almost actually no, 100% now of all my clients in my VIP pro, and the people who are spending like a lot of money to work with me, they're all women. So I'm very comfortable with women. How do you ask out a girl? I think what I've learned when I was 12 or 13 or 15 years old is the criteria of the girl I'm looking for, I guess woman now, has changed dramatically. Like when I was 15 was when I asked a girl out on a date the first time. And when you would ask me, hey, why did you ask out this girl on a date? I replied with, she's got a nice smile. She's kind of cute. I think she's really pretty. That's what you look for when you're 15. Whereas when you're 28, which is the age I'm at now, so I've lived a little bit longer. At this age, it's more like, okay, like being pretty and having a nice smile is great. It's definitely an important piece. But like, is she well educated? Will she be a great mother for my children? Will she take care of the people around? And you start to learn things throughout life. So you don't have to rush this. I think that's the first thing. The second thing that I would say is I always love to recommend having a lot of friends that are girls. That's really cool. Like, you don't have to date them. You can just go up to them and be friends with them. And I think that plays a lot. It gives you a lot of practice when talking to them. And then the third thing, a lot of guys have different opinions on this. This is my opinion. It's worked very well for myself. Is like, if you do have feelings for a girl, just be honest about it. I think that's really the key. Women are very indirect communicators, and we could talk about as to why that is. Is there a biological reason for that? And men are direct communicators. I say use it to your advantage, because if the girl doesn't like you and it kind of placates, you can just move on to the next one, because at the end of the day, it's just a numbers game. That's all I got for you. I'm not sure if your dad is happy with me sharing that with you, but we'll cover that in post.
I like it.
We'll see.
I think it's good advice. I like the idea of getting to be friends with girls, gets you more comfortable around them, talking to them, and then one day you'll find one that you're smitten with, and you'll want to take it to the next level, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully that's not for a little bit though.
Yeah,
that's
let's wait a little bit.
Yeah.
As in
No-
10,
no rush.
I'll wait till
15.
I'm like high school or college.
No rush.
Yeah.
I want to follow up. You mentioned the difference in, say, a female and a male perspective in terms of their directness and how they speak. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Happy to. These funny memes on TikTok, which I think are a little not correct, but I'll just use them just as a point of laughter, and then we'll get into the point, which is When a man communicates, it's usually very direct. It's like, when I say this or I feel this,
Yeah.
most of the times it's right. We're simple guys. We're simple. We're
Yeah.
simple creatures. If like Will wants ice cream, like it's not like he's not going, maybe I want. No, he's like, this is what I want, and then Dad goes, no, you can't have ice cream because we gotta eat healthy.
Mhm.
Aw.
But the other piece, I like how they just accept it, like, oh, okay, as if I'm like their uncle or something. The other piece is about saying, okay, but women are indirect communicators. So when we ask them how they're feeling, if they're upset, they'll just go, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But notice how indirectly they're communicating something. So a lot of guys get annoyed by this, and I
Mhm.
definitely did.
Mhm.
But now that I've matured a lot as a guy, I still have a lot more maturing to go. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm
all
not
do.
that old. Absolutely. Is we have to also, so it always goes back to that 3-letter question that Max repeated really well in this podcast. Why? Why is this happening? Why are women indirect communicators? And the answer is really simple, because the threat to their life is significantly higher than a man's,
Mhm.
right? Because at the end of the day, our brain is wired for survival, right? Not happiness. I'm sure you've heard this from one of your 40 guests on this podcast, where our brain is wired for, how do I make it to the next generation? How do I reproduce children, right? Other
Mhm.
children, continue my lineage. So if we think about it from that perspective, a woman is often afraid whenever they walk on the street, especially at night. As guys, we don't care. We just walk because no one's gonna. So what does that mean? So if guys ask a girl on a date and they're not interested, they can't just go, "Look, I'm not interested," because if they say that, they might frustrate the guy and it might lead to violence, right? Like that's how women think, and it
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So they'll
Yeah.
say something
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm busy, or yeah, you can take my number. Let's see. Right. So they're very indirect communicators. So it makes perfect sense. So when you approach and you understand that as a man, I think that gives you a significant edge in the dating market and in the business world. Because when you go
Mhm.
up to women, you're going to be way more easygoing. So you could say something like, hey, Shannon, I just want to say I find you really attractive. I would love to take you on a date, but know that my invitation is an invitation. Like, you're more than welcome to say no, and I'd be totally cool with it, but I'd really
Mhm.
love to take you out. So notice how that communication gives
Mhm.
space for the woman to say no, and even if they say no, they either could refer you to somebody. That's what happened with me with the girl I'm asking out this week. It's a friend of a friend, right?
Okay.
Or what happens is you win. Like, you win the interaction. They go like, wow, this guy's so way different than everyone else, and you make an impression. So that's the point I want to drive
Mhm.
there. Hope that makes sense.
Boys, we're gonna have to put that into the vault and revisit it when you get a little bit older. But I love that tactic
You guys have the
because
coolest dad.
He's the best.
I try. But
You try.
but
There's no try,
we'll,
only
we'll
do.
we'll have you put that one to work because it does definitely make somebody feel safe, like they can reply in any way and they'll be fine. And then as men, what Brendan is saying is sometimes you have to read the situation too, where if the girl says, well, I don't know, maybe I'll think about it, that's if she's not eager, then it's probably time to
no.
move on. And then, as he said earlier, it's a numbers game where not everyone is a fit. So you move on, and there will be somebody that is a fit.
Eventually.
That's right.
Hopefully.
You guys will have,
Most likely
I'm
not.
sure, plenty of statistical fits. We'll worry about that in a few years, though.
Our final question for you, before we get into the fun rapid fire part, is are there any specific things that all of us can work on after being on this podcast?
Oh, based on your observations today, and you won't hurt our feelings,
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry. Don't
we
worry.
promise.
No worries.
But any feedback that you could give us?
Totally. I think let me give you guys a couple of things that I think would be easier. So my first feedback is for you two boys. You guys could have a rule where every question you have to switch. So that way you guys share the stage 50-50. Right? So for example, let's say there's like 10 questions that you guys want to ask. Will has to ask the first one, then Max, then Will, then Max. So you guys get equal amount of practice. That's one thing I would think about. The second thing I would think about is to articulate the questions by writing them out first. So I'll give you an example. A lot of my clients struggle with this, but they have a much harder time than you guys. You guys will pick it up much faster because English is their second language. So they're like Indian guys, they're Korean guys, they're Asian women. So because of that, their Chinese is their first language, or Hindi is their first language, or something like that, or French is their first language. I speak 3 languages, by the way: English, French, and
Wow.
Tamil.
Wow.
And yeah, because I
Oui,
grew
oui.
up in Montreal.
Mhm.
Yeah, we. You're good, man. You're a charmer, that's for sure. Well, good stuff. All right, so the idea is you take the question, you write it out, and both of you practice articulating it. So let's say I go, "Hey, Brenden, what's your best piece of advice for dating?" Max says it out loud. So he goes like, "Brenden, what's the best piece of advice for dating?" before the show starts. And if you just practice articulating these questions, I think you guys get way better at this very quickly. And then the third piece of advice is to do a little debrief at the end, like practice the random word exercise a little bit more. And one bonus tip that you guys can do as well that I think would really help, I do this with clients, is whenever I interview a client of mine or they work with me, I'll send them a little video message to say, "Hey, thanks so much for being on my show. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you. Don't overthink the video." And especially from you guys, oh my God. I've gotten video messages probably 2 times in my career from kids, and it made my life. Forget about making my day. It made my life. Like, they would send me a video message, my clients as kids. Like, they would send me like, "Oh my God, Brent, thanks so much for helping my dad with the speaking." I'd be like, "Oh," like I would just
Yeah.
like, that's worth way more than me than like $1,000 watch or something, right?
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
you guys have that opportunity to go for.
Okay.
That's it.
I like
That's all I
that.
got.
Okay.
That's really
okay,
good.
Okay. Okay.
I'll have to
like
think
that.
about these videos. That would be, I think, a real treat for even our guests that come on. They'd give us such great advice and input.
I do like the
Why?
idea of the thing about like tissue box, shirt, water bottle, right? Just like describing them. That'd be fun and it would help.
Yeah. I like that too. Something else, just to follow up on this, is a lot of people struggle, and we have guests on, and candidly, a lot of them struggle with these filler words. You know, those types of things. What is some advice you have to create a more precise delivery of your language?
Totally, Matt. You know what I would say for ums and ahs? The first question we have to ask ourselves is, why do we say them in the first place? So let's say I asked you, Max, what is your least favorite subject in school?
Math.
Math. Okay, awesome. So you don't give presentations in math. So what's your second worst subject that you don't like?
French.
French. Do you give presentations in French?
I remember, I think in like first grade, but never ever again.
You're like, I'm never. So let's use that example. By the way, I struggled. I studied in French. That's why I'm a lot better at French today, because I'm in Montreal, so I got to learn it. But yeah, I was deathly afraid too when I was in first grade, and I was giving presentations in French. But here's the thing: when you're standing in front of a room as a kid, and the audience is kind of like this, they're not really listening to you, and the teacher's kind of looking at the sky, the ums and ahs start coming out because we forget what we want to say next. So we're on the stage, and let me know if this relates to you guys. You're talking, you're going, bonjour, what's this is what I'm gonna talk about, and does that relate? Something?
Yeah.
You guys see
I
kids?
thing is, I
Go
kind of like it when people don't look at me, because then that makes it less pressure. Because then less people are looking, so then I think I say it better. Maybe, I don't know. I've never actually paid attention to how I speak. It just feels better.
That's okay. I mean, I'm not expecting you to think about that either right now, Will, but like you will in the future. But the main idea, though, Max and team, is the reason we say the ums and ahs is because we forget what we want to say next. So our hands start to clam a little bit. We get a little nervous, and then we go, I don't really know what to say anymore. So how do we fix this? The way that we fix it is by replacing the ums and ahs with pausing. So let's say we go, John loves apples. We have to go, John loves apples. So what I encourage clients to do is literally whenever they're about to say an or on, they're practicing, they have to physically put their hand on their mouth as they're talking. So let's say I'm talking and I'm giving a presentation. I'm about to say up. So that way I can't say the And that's really the key. If you keep doing that, eventually you want to stop hitting yourself on the mouth, and then you fix it. But it takes a while. It takes a few weeks, but you'll get
Yeah.
there.
Wow.
I like
That's
that.
That's exactly right, Max. Let's get it for Max, everybody. You got it.
Nice.
You got it.
Nice.
Super.
I actually love that tactic because it gives you immediate feedback physically about what you're doing. And I
yes,
imagine that does correct it. So that's really cool. We talk about habits a lot on our show. And so that's a correcting loop. And that's a great way to do it. Let's move on to a section, Brenden, that is one of our favorites. It's called Rapid Fire.
Yeah, you gotta answer the questions as fast as you can with no explanation. Okay, just
You
like
got it.
it's a bunch of funny, strange, good questions.
Would you rather write a speech for Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
Donald Trump.
Excluding us, who is your idol?
Tony Robbins.
Would you rather fight a 1,000-pound duck or 1,001-pound ducks?
Probably 1,000-pound ducks.
Okay. Coolest invention in your lifetime?
Noise canceling headphones.
Would you rather die to a great white shark or a flaming hot volcano?
Ugh. Yeesh. Oh, volcano.
All right.
Okay. If you had a superpower, what would it be?
To make the whole world fall in love with themselves. Oh no, with each other, not themselves.
A world of narcissists. Okay.
Oh, gosh.
I like that. I like that one though.
Have you ever been stuck in a bathroom stall without toilet paper?
Stuck in a stall. That happened last week, but there was toilet paper. I like to avoid public restrooms.
Would you rather be vegetarian or carnivore for the rest of your life?
Carnivore for sure. Absolutely.
Wow.
Okay, that concludes Rapid Fire. Well, thank you. That was fun. It was fun. Always
right.
delivers.
So, do you have any final advice for the GST Nation?
The GST Nation. I would say my advice is to learn how to communicate as early as possible in your life. I don't think the education system values communication enough and how important it is later in your life, because it helps you get the girl or the boy. It helps you get the sale in business, because life is all sales, right? It helps you get sales directly in business, but also helps you sell yourself to get a job, being on a podcast, making amazing friends and friendships. And that's really my encouragement to everyone, is really to take action. So when you think about the random word exercise, don't write it down and go, oh, wow, this random word exercise is so cool. No, like practice it. Do it every day. Do it a few times a day and watch yourself get way better at speaking.
Okay.
Hey.
I love it. Well, as we wrap up, Brenden, I would ask if there are resources, or where would you point people to get in touch with you for your services? And best way to do that, we'll obviously drop those into the description for people that want to check you out. We encourage that they do.
Totally, man. This has been great, by the way. Thanks for having me, you three. This is super fun. Yeah, I would say the best way to keep in touch is my Instagram channel. So just go to Master Your Talk. Your is spelled Y-O-U-R. Master Your Talk on Instagram. And you could follow us there.
Okay. Awesome. This was a lot of fun. You're a great personality, obviously a great communicator. And we got some good advice today that we are going to put into action as soon as possible so that we can just notch ourselves a little bit better. So thanks again for coming on.
Let's go get some girls.
There you go. Thanks, everyone.
If you enjoyed the show, help us out. Like, subscribe, share, leave us a review. Until next time.